The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow that bathed the forgotten part of town. It was a place swallowed by time, tucked between decaying buildings and a labyrinth of narrow alleyways. The abandoned structures stood in quiet solitude, long abandoned by those who once called them home. The walls, now cracked and chipped, exposed layers of paint that had once been full of life but now lay faded and peeling. Dust clung to the floors, broken glass and forgotten remnants scattered across the space. This corner of the town was rarely visited, save for the occasional stray cat or the wind that wandered through the shattered windows. Amidst the forgotten ruins, a small boy, no older than 6 years old, wandered, his laughter echoing through the hollow halls as he played hide-and-seek. The old, forsaken building was the perfect place to hide from his friends. His little feet scurried through the dust, ducking behind crates and trying to stifle his giggles. But as he ventured deeper into the heart of the building, a strange pull gripped his chest, an unexplainable curiosity drawing him toward a part of the structure he had never explored. His friends, nowhere to be seen, had long since given up on finding him. The sounds of their laughter had faded, as if the world outside had completely forgotten about this place. The building was silent now, save for the soft whisper of the wind and the distant hum of life beyond its walls. But then, something else caught his attention, a soft, pitiful cry echoing through the hollow space. It was a sound unlike any he had ever heard before. It wasn't the usual scurrying of rats or the cries of stray animals. No, this sound was delicate, fragile, full of despair. The boy's heart began to race as he tiptoed toward the noise, his hand brushing the cold, rough surface of the walls as he moved cautiously. With each step, the cry grew louder, pulling him closer. His mind raced, wondering what could possibly be making such a sound in this forgotten place. It felt like an eternity before he finally rounded the corner and his eyes widened in disbelief. There, on the cold floor, wrapped in a faded pink blanket, lay a tiny baby. Its face was red, streaked with tears, and its tiny arms flailed weakly in distress. The boy froze, uncertainty flooding his young mind. What was this? A baby, abandoned in a place so desolate, so empty. It didn't seem real. For a moment the boy stood still, simply staring at the baby, unsure of what to do. The weight of the situation settled in on him. He couldn't just walk away, no matter how young he was. Instinctively, he knew the baby needed help, and fast. His small hands reached out, trembling slightly as he gently cradled the fragile infant, pulling it close to his chest. The baby's cries softened as the boy whispered what little comfort he could muster, though he wasn't sure the baby could understand his words. Looking around, he saw no sign of anyone, no one to help, no one to ease his growing panic. With the baby now in his arms, there was only one thing left to do. He had to get out of this forsaken place. The uncertainty and fear gnawed at him, but he pushed it aside. The baby's fragile weight pressed against his chest as he hurried through the deserted hallways. The cries had stopped, but the boy could still feel the urgency of the situation. He couldn't stop now, not until the baby was safe. Though his tiny frame trembled with fear, the boy didn't hesitate. He had to act, and he was the only one there to do so. Cradling the baby carefully, he made sure it was secure in his arms, the tattered pink blanket still wrapped around its tiny form. Its face was streaked with tears, eyes closed in exhaustion, but its little chest rose and fell with each shaky breath. The boy's heart broke for the baby, but there was no time for fear or doubt. The baby needed help, and he was determined to be the one to give it. He moved quickly through the desolate corridors, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. His heart pounded in his chest, but with every step, he grew more determined. There was no turning back now. He had to get out. He had to get the baby to safety. Determination surged within him, each step he took seeming heavier, the building silence pressing down like a weight on his shoulders. He knew he couldn't carry the baby for much longer. His small body was already straining, but leaving the infant in this desolate place where no one could help wasn't an option. His eyes searched the street as he stepped out of the building, scanning for any sign of life, anyone who could offer assistance. His heart skipped a beat when he saw a small shop just a short distance from the entrance. An older woman, the shopkeeper, stood outside, preparing for closing, her face soft with kindness as she sorted through boxes. The boy, breathless and trembling with desperation, rushed toward her. His voice quivered with urgency as he spoke. "Please help. I found a baby. It's alone," he said, his eyes wide with panic as he held out the tiny infant. The shopkeeper's expression immediately shifted from curiosity to concern. Without a moment's hesitation, she beckoned him closer, her voice calm but insistent. "Come inside, quick!" The boy dashed into the shop, the woman locking the door behind them, her face now filled with focus. Inside, she moved swiftly, guiding the boy to the counter where she helped him gently lay the baby down. She covered the infant with a soft towel she kept for cleaning and quickly dialed the authorities, her voice urgent as she spoke. "I've got an abandoned baby here. A boy brought it in. Please send someone immediately." The boy stood nearby, his small hands shaking as he lightly stroked the infant's fragile arm. He couldn't bring himself to leave the baby's side, not even for a second. The quiet hum of anxiety filled the space as he waited, praying for help to arrive. Soon the sound of sirens pierced the stillness, growing louder, each moment pulling him closer to relief and yet filled with a gnawing uncertainty. He had done what he could, but there were no guarantees. His heart raced as the sirens grew nearer, his chest tight with fear. Minutes later, 2 police officers burst into the shop. Their eyes quickly scanned the room, and then they focused on the boy and the baby. They moved with practiced speed, checking the infant for any signs of distress and preparing to take it to the hospital. The boy watched, silent and still, his fingers nervously tugging at the hem of his shirt. Though exhaustion weighed on him, a deep sense of pride settled in his chest. He had done what needed to be done, ensuring the baby wasn't left alone in the dark and cold. As the officers took the baby away, they offered him a gentle smile, thanking him for his bravery. The shopkeeper, too, gave him a knowing look of approval. But the boy didn't respond. His mind was elsewhere, still focused on the infant, praying that it would be okay. Deep down, despite the pride that swelled within him, he knew this was just the beginning. The baby's life had been saved by his quick thinking, and for now, that was enough. The news of the boy's actions spread quickly through the town, whispers of his bravery circulating like wildfire. Soon, the police and media revealed something that shocked everyone. The baby the boy had saved wasn't just any child. It was the missing son of a wealthy, influential couple, Jonathan and Elizabeth Whitmore. The child had been kidnapped weeks earlier, and despite a frantic search by both private investigators and the authorities, there had been no leads. The case had seemed hopeless, and the Whitmores were living in a nightmare of uncertainty. The couple had thrown every resource at the search for their son, contacting everyone they could, making public pleas, but their desperation only deepened with each passing day. The infant wasn't just their child, he was their world, their joy, the light in their lives. Now, their prayers had been answered in the most unexpected way. When the police made the connection, the Whitmores were overwhelmed with emotion, shock, relief, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Their son had been found, but it wasn't through the efforts of a detective, or even an adult. It was a 6-year-old boy, just a child, whose quick thinking and compassion had saved their family. They knew they had to meet him, to thank him, and to somehow express their gratitude for the extraordinary kindness he had shown to them. At the hospital, the atmosphere was thick with emotion as the doctors confirmed the baby was safe and healthy. The Whitmores felt a mix of disbelief and joy, their hearts swelling with love for the boy who had saved their son's life. The boy felt a wave of disbelief wash over him as he sat in the sterile hospital room, his mind racing with the enormity of what had just happened. He had simply acted on instinct, helping a baby in distress without expecting anything in return. Yet here he was, facing the Whitmores, the family whose world he had unknowingly saved. The quiet hum of the hospital seemed to amplify every step of Jonathan and Elizabeth as they approached him, their faces filled with an overwhelming mix of relief and gratitude. Jonathan, normally composed, knelt in front of the boy, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved our son. You brought him back to us," he said, his words cracked with uncontainable gratitude. The boy, still in shock, only nodded, unsure of how to process the magnitude of the moment. He didn't need a reward. All he wanted was to make sure the baby was okay. The words of the Whitmores were soft, laden with deep emotion. Jonathan gently placed his hands on the boy's shoulders, his voice trembling. "You are our guardian angel." Elizabeth's voice quivered, tears slipping down her cheeks as she added, "Without you, we may never have found him. We are forever indebted to you." The boy's family sitting nearby exchanged glances, clearly overwhelmed by the outpouring of emotion. The boy felt an unfamiliar swell in his chest, a mixture of pride and confusion. Jonathan's smile, filled with warmth and sincerity, made him feel like the most important person in the room, but at the same time, it was a lot to take in. Just a few days ago, he had been a child playing hide-and-seek, never imagining that his actions would change his life forever. "We want to do something for you," Jonathan said, his voice steady but still emotional. "We want to give you something that reflects how much we appreciate what you've done. You've given us back everything we thought we lost." Elizabeth, her own emotions raw, smiled through her tears, but her eyes spoke volumes. She felt as though this boy had not only saved their son, but had somehow saved their family. The boy's small act of kindness had restored something they had feared was lost forever. The boy's parents exchanged hesitant glances. They never expected recognition for their son's actions, but they could see how profoundly this moment was affecting the Whitmores. Jonathan's voice was filled with sincerity as he continued, "We want to give you a financial gift, something that will ensure your future is secure. We also want to help with anything you need, whether it's for school or whatever path you wish to follow." The boy, still overwhelmed, shook his head. "I didn't do it for money," he said softly. "I just wanted to help." Jonathan smiled warmly, understanding, his voice full of kindness. "We know, son, but this isn't about repayment. This is about making sure you know just how much your kindness means to us. Your bravery deserves to be recognized." The boy remained quiet, unsure of how to respond, but his parents, still in disbelief, nodded gratefully. This wasn't just a moment of recognition. It was an opportunity that could change their lives forever. As the boy's family exchanged a few words of thanks, he felt a sense of peace begin to settle over him. What had started as a simple game of hide-and-seek had turned into an extraordinary chapter of his life, a chapter that would shape his future in ways he couldn't yet understand. And though the recognition was overwhelming, he knew deep down that what mattered most was the fact that he had made a difference. He had brought a family back together. The following day, the boy and his family arrived at the Whitmore estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by acres of manicured land. The contrast between their modest home and the grandeur of the estate was staggering, and the boy felt small in the face of such luxury. His parents, on the other hand, were a swirl of emotions: awe, gratitude, and disbelief. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined their son's small act of kindness would lead to something so monumental. Jonathan greeted them warmly and led them into a beautifully decorated living room. Once seated, he wasted no time in speaking from the heart. "What your son did has changed our lives," he said, his voice steady, yet still filled with deep emotion. "He not only brought our baby back, but he has restored a sense of hope in our hearts. This home, this life, it's all possible because of him, and we want to ensure he has a future that reflects his incredible kindness." The boy's parents exchanged a look, overwhelmed by the weight of Jonathan's words. Jonathan gestured toward a large contract laid out on the table near the fireplace. "I've decided to transfer a significant portion of my estate to your son. This land, this home, it will be his. He deserves a place where he can grow, learn, and thrive." The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. "You want to give me this?" he asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. Jonathan nodded, his expression warm and unwavering. "Yes," he said simply. "And it's not just the property. I've set up a trust fund for you, a fund that will ensure your education, your future, Whatever you wish to do in life, you'll have the resources to make it happen." The boy's parents, speechless, were deeply moved by the generosity. His mother placed her hand gently on his shoulder, her eyes glistening with tears. "This is too much," she whispered, her voice breaking. The boy, still uncertain, turned to his parents. "I didn't do it for any of this," he said quietly. "I just wanted to help." Jonathan leaned in, his tone earnest. "And that's why we want to give this to you. You acted without expecting anything in return, but we want you to know that your actions haven't gone unnoticed. This is our way of honoring your kindness." The boy's father, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. "It's a lot for us to take in, but I think you should accept this, son. It's not just a gift. It's the Whitmores' way of thanking you properly." The boy's small hands clutched his lap nervously as he stared at the contract before him. His life, once so simple and small, was now set to change in ways he had never imagined. As he looked up at Jonathan, who smiled warmly at him, the boy felt a glimmer of reassurance. Jonathan's voice softened. "You've given us more than we could ever repay, but I hope this helps give you the life you deserve. We'll always be here for you." The boy nodded slowly, his voice filled with quiet gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his words sincere. "I'll do my best to make you proud." The room seemed to lighten as the Whitmores exchanged smiles and words of encouragement. The boy's parents, filled with relief and pride, watched as their son began to understand the weight of the opportunity before him. This moment, this life-changing moment, marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that would shape not just his future, but his family's as well. The boy, though still young, felt the weight of an unexpected responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders as he spent the day at the Whitmore estate. But in the midst of the overwhelming changes around him, he was at peace. His simple, instinctive actions had set in motion a ripple effect that had profoundly altered the lives of the Whitmore family and his own, and for now, that was enough. His act of kindness had been nothing extraordinary in his eyes, but the consequences were immeasurable. No matter what the future held, he knew that, in that moment, he had made an impact that would stay with the Whitmores forever. Word of the boy's heroic actions spread like wildfire across social media, touching hearts far beyond his small community. News outlets jumped on the story, highlighting the remarkable bravery and compassion of a child who had stepped up in the face of overwhelming danger. Headlines across the country hailed him as the boy who saved a life, with people across the globe admiring his selflessness. The story of this small hero resonated deeply, and social media exploded with messages of support. Hashtags like #HeroBoy and #SavedByKindness trending worldwide. The boy's courage captured the attention of everyone, from politicians to celebrities, who used their platforms to share his story and uplift his message of hope. Parents, educators, and community leaders alike turned to the boy as a shining example of virtue, urging children to look up to his remarkable display of responsibility. In a world often clouded by negativity, his story was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that goodness still exists. His bravery sparked conversations about the importance of kindness, especially in times of crisis, and how one small, selfless act could ripple outward to create lasting change. But the attention was only the beginning. As the story continued to capture hearts and minds, the boy's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. His new role as a hero brought him into the spotlight, giving him a platform to inspire others even further. Media outlets invited him to interviews, but despite the endless praise, he remained humble. In every interview, he stressed that he hadn't done anything exceptional. He had simply acted as anyone should when faced with the same situation. His humility, deeply rooted in the values his parents instilled in him, shone through. The Whitmore family, equally moved by the overwhelming support, continued to stay closely involved with the boy and his family. What had begun as a gesture of profound gratitude bloomed into a lasting, meaningful relationship. The two families visited one another often, sharing stories, celebrating milestones together, and supporting each other through life's trials. The baby, once a helpless infant, grew into a strong, healthy child, and as he matured, he learned about the boy who had saved his life. Over time, he came to see him not just as a hero, but as part of his extended family, a connection that transcended blood and created a bond that would last for generations. The boy's story continued to spread, inspiring others to act with courage, compassion, and selflessness. As the years went by, his actions became a symbol of hope in a world that often seemed defined by fear and uncertainty. His decision to help that day had not only saved a life, but it had ignited a series of events that would forever alter the course of many lives, including his own. The boy grew accustomed to the newfound attention, but he never allowed it to change who he was. His humility, compassion, and selflessness remained the cornerstone of his identity. Though he was now aware of the impact he had made, he never saw himself as special. He continued to live his life, cherishing the simple joys of childhood, but now with a deeper understanding of how one person's actions, no matter how small, could change the world. The Whitmore family, forever indebted to him, continued to nurture their relationship with the boy, ensuring he had every opportunity to succeed in life. Their bond, founded on love, gratitude, and mutual respect, grew stronger over time. Together, the two families built a legacy of kindness, one that would last long after they were gone. The boy's story became a beacon of light for others, showing that even the smallest acts of kindness can have profound and lasting effects. His impact reached far beyond his own life. It sparked a shift in his community as people began to see the value in helping one another. The Whitmore family, inspired by the boy's example, worked tirelessly to give back to the community, ensuring that no one would face hardship alone. As the years passed, the boy's legacy continued to inspire people from all walks of life. His story was shared across generations, passed down as a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one act of compassion could change everything. His courage and generosity became a touchstone for all who heard his story, encouraging them to live with empathy, selflessness, and kindness. In the end, it was clear that what defined the boy was not the material rewards he received or the recognition he garnered. His legacy was built on something far more enduring, the love, respect, and admiration he inspired in everyone who encountered him. His simple, pure heart had changed the world for the better, and the ripple effect of his actions would continue to spread for years to come, long after the headlines faded. The boy had not only saved a life, he had left behind a world that was a little kinder, a little more generous, and a little more hopeful because of one small, yet extraordinary act of kindness.